Hi, this is Christine Esposito from Terracom, a 29-year-old environmental communications firm. You're listening to WCGO Radio, 1590 and 95.9, Chicago Smart Talk. The Mike Nowak Show starts in 3, 2, 1.
If you put them outside, the squirrels will eat them. I'm not saying don't put them outside, but if you put them outside, the squirrels will eat them. I didn't have room inside, so I put them outside, and the squirrels ate them, one by one. They only ate half of each one begun. They're no good to me now, and they no longer hold attraction to the squirrels. The squirrels come back for the ones untouched, because I put them outside, and the squirrels are eating them. They'll soon be gone, and the squirrels will be fat. I knew that when I put them outside. I knew the squirrels would eat them. I knew that if you put them outside, the squirrels will eat them.
It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio. Flavored with a dash of humor. Welcome to intelligent, irreverent talk about plants and the planet they grow on. Your questions, comments, and participation are always welcome at 877-711-5611.
Good planets are hard to find. Temperate zones and tropic climes. And true currents and thriving seas. Wind blowing through breathing trees. Strong ozone and safe sunshine. Well, good planets are hard to find. Good planets are in demand.
This hour is brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com.
Jet streams, perfect air.
And here they are, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
Well, good planets are in demand. Right.
Oh, yeah. It says I'm on. Okay. We're having
The squirrel ate it.
Yeah. It and look we got phone calls pouring in. No, we've got phone calls. I'm not.
We have guests waiting.
I bet we have our guests online there because we're going to talk about how the squirrels eat your tomatoes today.
A giant Pac-Man.
And I have to give a tribute, shout out to a listener who sent in that audio that we used at the top of the show. Here's the problem. It's in the midst of time. That thing is a number of years old. I do not remember who sent it in. So if you're still listening to the show and you're listening this morning, you're welcome to write to us and say, hey, I did that piece. Because I don't remember who did it. But I love that piece because it's so true, especially in your neighborhood, though. It's the chipmunks.
The chipmunks will get them.
The chipmunks will eat them. In my neck of the woods, though, it was...
The rodents will eat them.
It was either a squirrel or an R-A-T.
Rodent.
And so I guess we have to shut down my backyard because it's a menace to the neighborhood, right? Because I'm growing tomatoes.
Don't go there.
We're not going to go. We're not going to go down there. Okay. All right. It's just a local issue here about a community garden that got shut down because of a rat complaint. And if you grow stuff, folks, if you live in the city, there are rats. I'm sorry, there are. That's just the way the city is. Get used to it. So you complain about rats in the city.
And a lot of the suburbs are that way, too. It's just part of the urban ecosphere.
Exactly. And so things come and it's not rats, just rats. It's chipmunks, it's squirrels, it's critters that come. Raccoons, possums. Rabbits. In the middle of the city on a third floor on a snowy night one day, I opened the back door to take the garbage out, and there was a possum just hissing at me. And I'm like, okay, dude, take it easy. I'm just taking the garbage out, all right? And it's going to be in a can. I'm going to put the lid on it, so you're not going to be able to get it. So you might as well go back down the stairs. Welcome to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Yeah, it's midsummer, and we need to talk about stuff that, your vegetable garden and how things are going. I guess we could throw in flowers, too, if you've got those things you want to talk about as well. But today we have some friends of the show who have returned so that we can talk about problems. And let me give you a heads up right now, 877-711-5611 is our telephone number if you want to call in. We'd love to have you call in and ask a question about what's going on in your garden. My observation, and I've seen people who have had better luck than I have this year. My observation, however, is that it's not a good tomato year, at least not around here. All right? And you have kind of the same situation, don't you, Peggy?
Mm-hmm. Although I know people who have huge crops of tomatoes this year.
Really?
Yeah.
I hate those people. All right? They're not welcome. They're not welcome at my house.
Of course, their yards are completely covered in netting and I don't know, something.
I don't.
It's probably just the right amount of sun and the right amount of everything.
Yeah, I'm not even talking about the 7 tomatoes I lost to critters this week. I'm talking about I got plants in general that are just and they're not doing well. But all right, well that's
heat.
That's why we have Dan Gibbs on the show this morning. He is the backyard farmer. That's why we have Joey and Holly Baird, the Wisconsin vegetable gardener. They're both, all three, actually, on at the same time. So we're going to have lots of great advice about growing things in your backyard today. So you should give us a call. Like I said, 877-711-5611. You can also reach us on the Mike Nowak Show, Nowak, on Facebook. You can go to Twitter, @MikeNow. You can go to Instagram, the Mike Nowak Show as well. I'm not sure what else. What else we want to do?
That kind of covers it all.
I still don't have internet. Your phone tells me I'm connected. And you know what I'm going to have to do? I'm going to have to reboot the whole thing. You know how that works. I hate that. All right. We've got vegetable talk coming up. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. I'm going to reboot. We'll be right back. City Grange, Chicago's newest and most unique garden center, wants to
Wally Novak
remove
saw a
all
chipmunk in
barriers
his yard.
to your gardening success.
He's
Now,
reported
providing
in the
organic
city.
heirloom plants for your kitchen garden, pollinator-friendly natives and annuals.
Yeah, you don't have to
planting go.
do this.
They deliver the plants
Fix
you
it for
put
you.
them in. Who does
So,
that? Classes for adults and kids, special events, and more. They even have complimentary valet parking on weekends. 5500 Northwestern
need to do a
Avenue at
chapter in?
Catalpa.
Yeah, can you hear him?
CityGrange.com. Learn.
I can hear you.
I can't hear him.
Check your volume.
Pizza Live
Yes.
returns to Main Street in Evanston on Sunday, September 9 from 1 to 5
Okay,
p.m.
now
and the
you're gonna
Mike
wanna
Nowak
raise your
Show is
mic way
proud
up.
to be a sponsor. There'll be
So
live
it's about
music,
at this-
kids crafts, pollinator garden tours, bubbles, chalk art, painting, sports demos, delicious
There you
food
go.
from street vendors, and the Evanston Green Living
Okay,
Festival.
how's that sound?
Folks looking for products, services, and ideas
1,
that
2,
promote
3,
sustainable
4,
lifestyles.
5,
As
6,
always,
7,
Main Street
8, 9, 10.
bike, scooter,
Now,
and
can you sing that?
details, visit evanstonstreetsalive.org.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever walked into a hair salon and been overwhelmed by the smell of chemicals?
And I am on
It's never
Comrex
going
now.
to happen at Organic Roots Eco Salon. They use only the safest, most natural, professional hair products available to make sure you get great color results that last and won't harm the environment or you. Their salon products and services are free from ammonia, formaldehyde, and other toxins typically found in hair color, perms, and keratin smoothing treatments. Organic Roots also offers a complete menu of safe straightening treatments, including the non-toxic Magic Sleek and Cezanne keratin smoothing products that let you shampoo the same day. They even repurpose hair clippings, recycle product containers, and use LED lighting. Now that's green. Walk into 21st century hair care for women
Okay,
and
then
men
I
at
won't-
Organic Roots Eco Salon, 3417
I'll just
Dempster
text
in
Ellie.
Skokie. Book your appointment at organicrootsecosalon.com or call 847-423-2653. Health and beauty. You no longer have to sacrifice one for the other.
I'm your Ringmaster Sal. Tune into the Sports Circus weeknights at 7 here on WCGO Radio, 1590 AM and 95.9 FM.
Nothing's gonna change my world. Nothing's gonna change my world. Nothing's gonna change my world.
Welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. We still have that issue a little bit. If I have this too high and then I have my own headset low, I can't hear myself speaking here. That's still something we're tweaking here. I just want to, that was a shout out, that little clip there to Kathleen, who introduced me to these great kids. You're going to hear a little more of them on the show today, and I don't think that Mark Zuckerberg is going to block them. It's on YouTube. It's on
Facebook.
PS22 is this wonderful choir on Staten Island in New York City. They do some amazing stuff, these kids in the choir, you have to audition for it, and it's very special, and their music director must be absolutely wonderful. I don't have all the information in front of me because the computer is rebooting, okay, just so I can get online.
It's probably updating everything, too, while it's rebooting.
Okay. Boy, and it wants to install an update right away. Yeah, I better, because it's not going to...
Well, it ties right into the Midsummer reboot we're about to talk about.
Exactly, and so I just we're going to play a little bit of PS22, and you go to YouTube and just look up PS22. If you just type that into the search bar there, you will see and hear some wonderful stuff. The kids are fantastic, so I thought I would treat you with that. Welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. As we said, it's midsummer, whatever. Reevaluation. I mean, this is, and I was trying to figure out as I was writing my blog yesterday, is this midsummer or is this is not late summer yet. It's sort of still midsummer, because late summer I think of as September 1st, right? Dan Gibbs, who is in the studio with us. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Okay. All right. Here's the deal, dude. You should not be here, is what I got to tell you. You should not be here because Dan, first of all, he just had a baby, all right, Everett, right?
Correct.
Little Everett, who's at home with mommy, and while Dad's out gallivanting on radio, I can't believe you came down here, because I didn't even know you had a baby until you wrote back to me this week when I invited you to the show. And Dan, of course, is the backyard farmer. And by the way, unfortunately, if you go on Facebook and you type in backyard farmer, there's a lot of them across the country.
If you do it under Chicago backyard farmer, it'll come on up.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes.
That's why I couldn't find the link. All right.
And speaking of Facebook, really quick for any of our listeners, we are streaming live on Facebook off the Mike Nowak Show.
Oh, you're right. So if you go into WCGO, you're not getting it right now. It's at the Mike Nowak Show, which you should find on Facebook and join the party.
And give us a like while you're there and share.
Yes, exactly. Share. Yeah. Start a party. Start a watch party right now. Go ahead. So Dan, not only did you have a baby this week, right?
Correct. Yeah, it came on the 7th.
Oh my goodness. You're in the middle of judging gardens for the Chicago Excellence in Gardening Awards.
Let me try that again. That's
there you go. That's much better. So you're a busy guy, and I bet you're doing stuff on your own as well. What's going on in your life?
Yeah, so I started off pretty strong with the SIGA Awards. On Monday, I was able to go to two lovely gardens.
Kathleen, if you're listening, he's saying this for your benefit, okay? Because Kathleen is the one who keeps track of all the judges who are out there doing awards.
And then, on Tuesday, everything with my new son kind of got underway, and so put a little bit of a delay, but we'll get back into the judging this week. Aside from that, I have a lot going on with helping people grow gardens in their own backyard, and I also work full-time for an organization called Big Green here in the city of Chicago, which is installing learning gardens in CPS schools and increasing food literacy.
So there you go. You're way too busy. You should not be here is what I'm telling you. By the way, folks, you can go to Chicago Backyard Gardener, but if they want to go to the website, that is
www.chicagobackyardfarmer.com.
All right. Did I say gardener or farmer? I think I said whatever. Anyway, Chicago Backyard Farmer. All right. So Dan's here to talk with us, but also on the phone, we have our buddies, the Wisconsin vegetable gardener and That is
That would
Holly.
be singular, gardener.
Right. There's two of them, but it's so confusing. I cannot keep up with it. We have Holly and Joey Baird. Hey, welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us. How are you?
All right, good. Now, you got to understand, they're not in the same place. So it's not like calling mom and dad on the speakerphone this morning. It's more like it's calling Holly and Joey on separate phones because they're I guess Joey's out on a business call, and Holly is, I think, back at home, but I don't know, and I don't really care. I just want to make sure that we know that when we talk to them, they're not giving visual cues to each other, so I'll have to address them separately. So let's start with you, Holly. All right. What's going on with the Wisconsin vegetable gardener right now?
Well, I don't know if you're referring to the garden or us, but
either. Pick one. Pick one.
Well, our garden is doing okay. I know you guys had just talked about tomatoes. We don't have any tomatoes yet. We had that really wet spring, and I think that contributed to a lot of problems. We have a lot of weeds, and that seems to be the consensus for a lot of people, is there's a lot of weeds just taking over, and I think it's because of the wet spring we had and how much rain we got and how long the rain lasted. So that's an issue that we are having. And then also, we don't have any tomato problems or anything like that yet. Hopefully we won't, but it's just that we don't have any tomatoes yet.
Well, I understand that. I feel, yeah, and I feel your pain, and folks also need to know, those of you who live south of Chicago, south of Milwaukee, you got to understand, Milwaukee's only 90 miles to the north here, but you might as well be in another country in terms of the weather. Everything comes much later there, and we had a cold, wet spring. You had a really cold, wet spring, didn't you?
Yeah, we had a lot of snow, and we have a lot of green tomatoes on the vine. It's just that we don't have any ones that are ready yet.
Okay, now I will go to Joey and say that's the horticulture side. What about the radio side? How you guys doing?
We're doing good on the radio side. We are working towards season 4 next year for 2020. We are expanding from 6 stations in 4 markets to 13 stations in 9 markets across the country. So we're taking a big leap and going to try to reach more people next year with the same type of format that we have of content that's general to all gardeners, no matter where they're at. It's not specific to Milwaukee, but we have the conversation where everybody can learn and address problems that they're facing in their garden.
Fantastic. And of course, folks can go to the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com, and there are videos, there are podcasts, there's all kinds of advice there on growing things. You can get it all, and Holly and Joey do that every week. You guys shut down, though, for at the end of, October for the winter?
Yes, we shut down in October because we, as much as we would like to go year-round, we need a break, and you guys do it year-round. But your format is slightly different with the topics and the conversations that you can have that we are not as easily able to have in November, December, and January. So we regroup and reboot for the following year and go from there.
You know, Peggy, I kind of like the idea of taking a few months off here. I could use it right about now.
Ellie, Andrew, you guys are taking over.
All right, so Holly mentioned tomatoes, and everybody loves to grow tomatoes, so we might as well start there because that's such a favorite food. Everybody wants to grow tomatoes, and let's go to Dan here in the studio. You heard what Holly had to say. They got lots of green tomatoes. I've had some red ones, like I said. We were talking out before the show in the lobby, and at the beginning of the show, I lost 7 fully mature, red, juicy, beautiful tomatoes.
Much anticipated.
To critters. And when you're having a slow tomato season, that's a tragedy. And I've harvested some, but to lose that many beautiful tomatoes in 1 week, in the yard is really hard to take, especially when a lot of the plants aren't producing well. So what are you seeing in regard to, let's start with tomatoes?
So exactly what you're saying as far as critter issues with tomatoes, and some of the best advice I ever got on growing tomatoes in urban Chicago because of the critter issues. There are some lovely women that I garden with for the Austin Green team on the west side, and many of them will exclusively grow green zebras or green flesh variety tomatoes because for whatever reason, the critters don't bother them. And so this is something that they've been doing for years, heirloom variety green flesh tomatoes, and they end up getting a decent yield and being able to go home with it.
That's interesting. I wonder if it's something in the aroma of the tomato or the moisture,
or if the critters, have trained themselves or learned to notice color change, then you never get that from the green zebras. So I don't know the answer, but it was good advice, and it's worked well for me as well.
Well, and also, human beings don't steal your tomatoes if they're green. All right, that's what I found doing a community garden, because we had a community garden with no fences, and anybody could walk in, and we discovered that tomatoes would disappear off the plants, and they weren't critters, but the green zebras and other green varieties would stay because people didn't know they were ripe.
Yep.
And they're tasty and they're really wonderful. So that's really good advice. Joey, have you discovered anything like that?
We've not had a problem with the critters, but yes, we do grow green zebra. We grow, I think it's called green sausage, and something green tomato where they mature completely green. So as a gardener, you have to know that these tomatoes are never going to change to color, so you have to mark it in a notebook or in the garden that these ripen when they're totally green, so you're not waiting and waiting and waiting for them to get ripened. They never will.
That's interesting that you say you don't have critter problems. What do you think, why do you think that is the case up in your area?
We've spent a number of years kind of ridding the area of the backyard of critters. We surround our garden with a 2-foot-high poultry fence, which keeps the rabbits out, somewhat deters the chipmunks and the squirrels, and we don't have problem with deer in our area, but that's just how we have worked on repelling animals from getting in the garden.
Now, you said poultry fence. You mean chicken wire?
Chicken wire, yes. Yeah, we find and we leave it up year-round. We do not remove it at the end of the year. We keep that barrier up year-round, and we also make sure the property fence that's around the backyard is completely sealed off the bottom, so there's nobody that can sneak underneath the fence. And if there is an animal that comes in, we chase it out. We don't extract it. We chase it out to see where it is coming in at, and then we block that hole off so they don't come back.
So you're a fan of physical barriers. Often there's nothing you can do. You mentioned deer. A lot of folks live out away from a city, and they have to deal with deer. Even here, I mean, I don't know. Do you have deer in your neck of the woods, Peggy?
Highland Park has a lot of deer. The North Shore has a lot. I don't, thankfully, where I live. But
yeah.
But parts of the area have.
And sometimes the only thing you can do with deer is you just got to have that fencing. That's pretty much it.
They love tomato plants. So while the other critters will get the low down stuff, the deer are going to graze right at the top.
Yeah. Now, what about products? Dan, you mentioned some out in the lobby. You got to be careful about the kind of products you put on edibles.
That's totally correct, and I would never even think about any type of product that wasn't clearly labeled non-toxic or OMRI certified. But there is one product, and I don't know who the manufacturer is, that I have clients that have had great luck with when it comes to having critters in their garden, and it's a product called Rabbit Scram, SCRAM. Which is available at local hardware stores or probably some of the bigger box stores as well. But if you use this powder product, and it is a non-toxic product, that's suitable in food gardens, and you draw a border around your garden with this product, you'll create, something that will be a deterrent to, rodents that are coming in your garden. And I've seen it work, and I've had clients that tell me it works well, so I have no reason not to believe it.
And it says it's rain resistant. It won't wash off or dissolve in water for up to 45 days. I'm on their website.
Okay, yeah, and it's, generally you only need a product like that for a window, and if as soon as you notice the damage, if you have a product that you know what works, you don't necessarily need it for the whole garden. Animals are going to go for the punny, low-hanging fruit. And if they have to work too hard...
Tell me about it.
If they have to work too hard to get at your garden, they're just not going to do it. They're going to go on to someone else's garden.
You got like 30 seconds here, so... Holly, real quick, I assume you guys don't use any products like that because you're organic, right? Or use organic techniques?
Right, yeah, we don't use anything that's harmful to our plants. We do use Bobex, which can be sprayed around the plants to deter critters and such, and that is very effective, especially with squirrels and, especially with squirrels that eat a lot of and dig up a lot of your plants.
What was that you said you use?
Bobex.
It's called Bobex.
Oh, Bobex.
Bobbex.
All right, great. All right, we got more. You guys stick around. We're going to bring Holly and Joey back along with Dan. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Peggy, McHenry County's largest.
So we
Holly and Joey, if
your...
you can, if you guys can stick around for another segment, can you handle that?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Ellie, are you able to shift Dan's camera a little bit if he moves the mic?
So get your business in front of this crowd as a
Because we just can't see your face.
Oh, yes, green holiday gift ideas are welcome.
I can stay pointed.
Well, move that way a little. No, you move that way. No, keep the mic where it is.
Keep the mic
and you move that. I'm just looking at you up there. That's better.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Look
Okay.
at your.
Okay.
Now we
great.
can see you.
And look that way.
Or look at Mike.
Okay. Okay.
We just couldn't see you. All you could
Okay.
see was the microphone
Okay.
in front of you.
Ponds, bird baths, and any
Perfect.
water to kill mosquito larvae for 30 days or longer. Don't worry, mosquito dunks won't harm people, pets, fish, or
Somebody about knowing when green zebras are ripe.
hardware stores and online.
That's always tricky, isn't it?
Responsible solutions.
Well, I give a little squeeze. You usually have a pretty good idea.
Sure.
Although sometimes they can stay hard for a long time.
Or you just pick them and bring them in and monitor them on the counter.
Right.
The Illinois Solar Energy Association is raffling off a 2019 Tesla Model X, the award-winning all-electric SUV. But you need to get your tickets soon because only 2,500 will be sold. So how do you win? Go to store.illinoissolar.org. That's store.illinoissolar.org.
watch party. Well, there's
Buy
two
one
sets.
raffle
There's
ticket for
seven
$100 or the
watching.
4-pack for $300. All raffle proceeds will
I'm just
fully
monitoring
benefit
both
the
of them 'cause
Illinois
there's
Solar
questions on
Energy
watch party.
Association, a nonprofit working to advance solar energy development
Well, that
throughout
happens
the state
anyways.
of Illinois. The winner will be drawn at the
You've got
ISEA member meeting on December 5th, 2019. Anyone in the continental U.S. is eligible to win, and you don't even need to be present at the drawing to claim your prize. So get your tickets, the rules, and all the other small print details at illinoissolar.org today.
I'm Holly Baird.
And I'm Joey Baird. We are the hosts of the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener radio show at our flagship station out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and a few other places across the country. And we always listen to
The Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. If you're not listening in, you're missing out.
they're probably not listening now if they didn't hear us already.
Well, they should.
Well, here's Mike and Peggy.
So what you guys were asking was kind of an existential question there, I think. We've got Holly and Joey Baird, the Wisconsin vegetable gardener, on the phone this morning. Dan Gibbs, the backyard farmer, Chicago backyard farmer, is in the studio with us, and we're talking gardening questions, and we've got some, and we will get to them in just a second. Meanwhile, got a minute for your trees? Lightning is among the most fascinating, mysterious, and dangerous phenomena on Earth. Each year, more than 1 million trees in the United States are struck by lightning. A lightning strike can immediately kill trees or weaken them so severely that they are attacked and then killed by boring insects or other secondary invaders. And Peggy, this is where I talk ants. the innocent bystanders of the insect world. Everybody blames ants. They say the ants killed my tree.
No.
Well, no. It's usually something else that invades your tree first, and then the ants take advantage of it. Leave those.
They bring the picnic.
Unless they're fire ants, and then, you don't care as much. But otherwise, leave the ants alone. Now, lightning not only poses a risk to trees, but to adjacent structures as well. Damage to structures can occur when lightning strikes a tree and then side flashes or jumps to more conducive materials such as downspouts and other metal objects. Bartlett Tree Experts offers lightning protection systems that can minimize the risk of damage from a strike. These systems use copper conductors connected to a ground rod to reduce tree damage and conduct the electrical charge to the earth where the energy is dispersed. Now, Peggy and I saw examples of this at the Bartlett Research Laboratories in North Carolina earlier this year. Pretty cool demonstrations that they did not actually have lightning shoot out.
They didn't call the lightning in.
No, they didn't. They brought in Thor, and he called in the lightning. No, they did not do that, but it was still a great...
Next year they will.
Maybe they will. Let the Bartlett Tree Experts protect your valuable trees from lightning, because every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com. Welcome back. We're talking veggies today. We've established in certain parts of the Midwest, and again, some people, tomatoes are rocking and others are not. And, that's kind of par for the course, but I've noticed personally that it's not been a great tomato year. Dan, you kind of agreed with that?
And it's like you're saying, it's kind of hit or miss. I've seen some folks with beautiful plants and they're harvesting already, and then I've seen other areas where it's pretty sparse. So I haven't seen anything uniform at all.
Okay. And as we established with the Wisconsin vegetable gardener, theirs are still green, but they're in Milwaukee, so there you go. They're going to ripen.
They're a week or two behind. We also do have another question that came in on Facebook.
All right, let's take a question.
But this is not a tomato question.
No. I was going to move on anyway.
Okay. So this is coming from Tracy. She said she was hearing us talk about rabbit repellent, but is there something that keeps critters away from corn? This is the second year they completely destroyed every stalk of the corn she'd grown. She was growing beautiful blue heirloom corn.
Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, so that was kind of a running joke that I had with other growers when I was in Plymouth, Wisconsin, is how do you know when your sweet corn's ready? When the raccoons get it. And you generally get a very short, maybe a week-long window of harvesting that sweet corn when it's ready to go. A real important thing with growing sweet corn for a number of different reasons, but knowing your timing. And so when that seed goes into the ground, you need to be familiar enough with your the variety that you're growing to know when that ear of corn is going to be harvested and know when your window is. When that window comes upon you, you've got to be kind of ready to go with it, because you're not the only one watching those ears of corn. And so it's
they're getting the butter and the salt ready.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And so just having an awareness of when that corn is ready to harvest so that you're ready to move on it, if there are any types of protections you need to have in place, but stay a step ahead of your raccoons or your particular critter and be aware of when that's got to come out.
But as Snoop Dogg says,
what is these animals? Is them mongooses?
Yeah, okay. So you got to be careful of the mongooses in your yard. All right, well, let's go to Joey then. Have you grown corn, and what have you done to protect your corn?
We've grown corn. We found it to be very successful in the backyard. Again, we've just keeping the poultry or chicken wire fence up. In the urban setting, we haven't had issues. Back on the farm where I grew up, we had problems with raccoons. Usually about 2 days before it was ready to go, they would come in and devastate the crop. So we would learn, as Dan was saying, to be proactive instead of reactive and harvest it slightly earlier than what we would have wanted to so we could get a crop. Other people will say, well, just go to the barber shop and get hair and put that around the base of the plant, the stalk. That will scare them off. Raccoons do not care about the smell. They're so into it. They'll go as long as there's food and they know there's not a threat. They're going to go after that corn. It doesn't matter what you put on the ground.
And there are some folks that I know, they say Irish Spring soap is I can't tell you for how many years I don't even. Do they still make
I was gonna
Irish?
say, do they still make that?
I feel like they do.
Oh, but I like it too. Gosh, I remember those commercials. But so I always say that's the soap on a rope solution for your plants. So I don't know. Some people swear by it, but as Joe,
anybody out there tried it? Let us know.
Okay, now let's move on to a problem that I know Joey and Holly, you guys discussed on your show very recently, and that's powdery mildew. And of course, powdery mildew is a fungus. It's a film, a white film that appears on the leaves of plants, and it doesn't generally kill them, but if you get enough of it, it'll pretty much mess up your crop for the year. So you have to. This is another preventive kind of thing. You need to get to it early to keep it from spreading on the plant, and so you need to be paying attention. So, Holly or Joey, who wants to handle this one? Because you guys had an expert on the show recently, or you guys talked about it. Go ahead, Holly.
I can handle this one.
Okay.
Sure. So powdery mildew it's a fungus, and it's common because we are moving towards the fall equinox, so we're getting these cooler nights and not enough heat during the night to dry the plants off. And so this forms that mildew, and like you said, you do want to be vigilant when you start to see it. And the best thing typically to do is to take some baking soda and water and dilute it, and you can look up recipes for that online, and spray the plants. And that baking soda, it kind of alkalizes it so that it breaks it up. But the reason why the powdery mildew is a problem is because it blocks the sun from the plant to photosynthesize, and then it chokes out the plant from growing. So baking soda diluted in water with a little bit of like Dr. Bronner's or dish soap will help apply it to the plant, and then it'll help break it up.
And if you're getting it early, one of the things you got to remember is be careful. If you're removing leaves that have powdery mildew, you don't want those spores dropping all over the place. Destroy it. Don't put it in your compost pile. Get it out of the way. Dan, how about you? Have you dealt with this?
Absolutely, and I've dealt with it on a pretty large scale. And one of the most important preventative things that you can do when it comes to any type of soil-borne fungus is you need to really focus on your rotation, no matter how small your garden spot is or to how large. The plants need to be moving around, and
meaning from year to year.
From year to year,
Yeah.
correct. A lot of times you can avoid those soil-borne funguses if you are practicing a good rotation and just getting those plant families into a different location on a year-to-year basis. And another thing that you could do is see what kind of a barrier you can put between the soil and the leaves of the plant so that you don't have the rainwater or irrigation water splashing up onto the plant and delivering that fungus onto your plant.
Okay, so as we have discovered here, what's important.
I say this calls for action, and now, nip it in the bud.
Okay, this is, as you can see, I have new drop-ins.
Oh, boy.
I got
He's got new toys.
New drop-ins this week. So,
and KC says, yes, Irish Spring is still available.
It is.
Yes.
But
KC Tomato.
But Casey, what you didn't tell me, and Casey, you need to talk about, send us a quick note. That's Casey Tomato in Kansas City, Mo. And you need to tell us about how your tomatoes are doing. And we'll talk to you about the plants you gave us because Casey breeds tomatoes, okay? And he gave us several varieties. Couple of them are doing great.
I've had one so far ripen.
I've got one of them. One of the numbered ones. It's not a Sun Lucky.
The one with the 16.
What's the one you gave me? Is that the 16?
16L dash blah, 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 blah.
That is chock full of tomatoes right now, Casey, so you should know that.
They're doing great.
We just harvested an orange one from another number, a 5-L-2-7-6-5. Okay.
0.3987.
That's right. Hike. So let us know what you recommend for tomato issues. And I need to send some photos. By the way, I sent photos to you guys. Were you able to get any sense of what that was about? I said a friend of mine has issues with her tomatoes. You're nodding, Dan.
Yeah, the ones that I saw when you had sent them, I mean, they definitely looked like a fungal issue. Specifically which I wasn't able to tell from the pic, but yeah, those tomatoes that are having a hard time during the course of the growing season are so often in such a small group of issues, and the fungus issue is generally
well. What I
one.
told her was take those leaves off and destroy them, and see what happens to the rest of the plant.
And maybe put some mulch down too, in case it is coming off the soil.
It's totally true, and especially there's a possibility that this individual was growing tomatoes in the same spot the year before, and so that
well, I do happen to know it's in at the Peterson Garden Project, and you get a plot. And I don't know if they give the same plot year after year. It'd probably be wise to mix them up. But then you don't know if the other person planted tomatoes, so at least you know what you have in your own plot. So I don't know how that works. So I need to ask her about that.
Yeah.
So Mac, if you're listening, these are your plants. I sent them the photos of. Okay. We got one more segment. Okay. Here, Holly and Joey, can you handle one more segment?
Yes, we can.
You guys are great.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, I appreciate it. I told them they were going to be out for a segment. Now they're out for the whole hour. That's the way it works. All right, great. We've got Holly and Joey, the Wisconsin vegetable gardener, Dan Gibbs, the Chicago backyard farmer. We are talking your gardening issues. Give us a holler if you've got a question. We'll be right back.
What happens when
So we should probably look at, so what do we plant for fall now?
Good point. What can you get away with right now in early to mid-August?
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
So Holly and Joy, I hope you heard that as well.
This important gathering happens on Saturday, September 14th at the Field Museum in Chicago.
Yes, we did.
And the
Okay.
Nowak Show
Okay,
with Peggy
fantastic.
Malecki.
Thanks.
They were drinking their coffee at the
We
moment.
want you to join us to fight for environmental justice.
I don't know if it was Andrew or Ellie, but they're very diligent, and they put you immediately on hold. So there you go. That's his. He's trained. He's trained to do that.
Climate change now, we have to really get
No, that's,
No. We're fine. We're fine. We're cool.
we just didn't know if they heard us.
affecting the ability for people to
Oh,
cope.
and I need to read one here.
We've got the, yeah.
No. Fox.
Fox.
Yeah. Fox. Okay.
Yeah,
And we're going to do.
because I moved those after the break now
Okay,
on the
great.
list.
I didn't see that.
On WCGO 1590, Chicago's Smart Talk.
I'm sorry?
It's so grainy and fuzzy.
Getting healthier all the time?
On my computer,
I
yeah.
know this is true because for 8 years I've been publishing Natural Awakening, Chicago's greenest
Okay.
healthiest magazine. And
Oh,
I
the
want
lettering
my
looks,
message to reach
the images look good, the lettering looks
readers and
really
some of our
fuzzy.
readers. Why? Because our advertisers tell us that our targeted readers are committed to improving their health and they're ready to take action. That's more than 80,000 people in Chicago who will
Okay.
respond to your message. They're looking for holistic
Thank you.
practitioners, doctors,
You want me to read
dentists,
that? You gonna read it, or-
health coaches, yoga, even home improvement and
Tom
landscape
Shepard's got a
experts.
comment.
Natural Awakenings is a free monthly magazine available in more than 1,100 locations.
Tom
throughout
Shepard is
Cook,
listening. That's
Lake,
his
and
comment.
McHenry counties. Call me today to expand your market and grow your business. 847-858-3697. That's 847-858-3697. Natural Awakenings. Feel good, live simply, laugh more.
Tune in Sunday night, 8 p.m. It's Steve Levin, the Dice Man. Roll the dice where you don't know what the heck we're going to be talking about, but you be sure to listen, learn, and laugh.
1, 2, 3.
Y'all been grinding so long, been trying this here for years. And I got nothing to show, just coming this road right here, right here. And if there's a man upstairs, he keep bringing me rain. But I've been sending up prayers, something changed. I think I finally found my hallelujah. I've been waiting for this moment all my life now. My dreams are coming true.
Yeah, there we go. More of the PS22. And I'm looking for the guy. They're singing. Here we are. It is, no, I had this here. See, just when I need it is when I lose track of it on the computer. All right, I'll get back to that. I'll find it when I have a second to look at it. First of all, if you love to landscape with trees and you haven't been to Rich's Fox Willow Pines in Woodstock, you've missed out on their collection of unique conifers and rare deciduous trees. And now, after 31 years in business, unfortunately, they're closing their doors at the end of 2019. So now is the time to take advantage of 40% off for container trees and 30% off for in-ground trees. There's still a good supply of pines, spruces, firs, hemlocks, junipers, yews, and the deciduous larches, bald cypresses, and dawn redwoods. I love dawn redwoods. I love bald cypresses. They're basically the same tree. One is alternate, one is opposite leaves, if you know what I'm talking about. They're not really the same tree.
And
but
the bark's a little
they
different.
they're a little bit different. Many of the cultivars are dwarf in form or have unusual shapes, such as weeping, mounding, columnar, or angular. Like I said, these are not your grandfather's conifers. If you've been to the Shed Aquarium, the Lincoln Park Conservatory, or the Chicago Botanic Garden, you've seen some of these fantastic trees. Go to richesfoxwillowpines.com for more information. Follow them on Facebook and sign up for the e-newsletter to get the latest as they go out of business in the next few months. Again, go to richesfoxwillowpines.com. Don't worry about an apostrophe. It's just richesfoxwillowpines.com. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. We have Dan Gibbs, Chicago backyard farmer, in studio. We have Holly and Joey Baird, the Wisconsin vegetable gardener, on the phone. They're in separate secret locations that will not be divulged, and then they go back to gardening tomorrow. So where did we leave off here? What do we need to cover? Let's talk about things that you guys have seen in your gardens that are interesting and that you think other folks should know about. Joey, let's start with you.
We are very diligent. We do not use mechanical tillers in the spring. We go in with a garden fork and remove all the weeds and root structure that we possibly can find. Our garden is set up in 3-foot wide by 10-foot to 20-foot long beds with 1-foot walk paths between them in ground, and we work very hard to remove all the roots and the weeds in the spring, and we have seen more weeds than ever before in our garden, choking out some of our vegetation that we're planting. So we are reevaluating what we should do next year, as this has been about the second of 5 years we've had this bad problem. So we're looking at what the investment would be in order to bring in, create several raised beds and bring in good compost and strictly grow in the raised beds and maybe some straw bales and eliminate the ground garden, since this is repetitively become a problem each year. And Mike, you know what the definition of insanity is. So we need to figure out what we need to do different, because it's not changing from year to year. We're consistently getting more and more weeds, and we're not tilling the soil with a tiller, just removing the roots as we need to with a garden fork.
All right, so that's when you say you're working the soil in the spring. You say it's not a tiller, it's not a rototiller, because I've read enough places that say rototilling may actually be harming the soil structure, so you shouldn't do that. And there are people who rototill religiously, and they'll do it twice a year. They'll do it in the spring, and they'll do it again in the fall, and they'll go, "Wow, the soil's good and it's loose." And the problem is, maybe you don't want it that loose because there's biology in there. Folks, we're talking about the soil food web and everything that comes together. So if you guys are digging it by hand as need be, I'm thinking, Holly and Joey, you're protecting that soil biology. The problem, as you've encountered it, is massive numbers of weeds. Dan, let's hand it over to you. What do you got to say about that, and what do you do?
A couple different, things to touch upon. Many of your listeners may not know that weed seeds can stay in the ground for 50 years. So the weeds that
and still germinate. Like a tardigrade can be there forever and then end up on the moon and still come back to life.
It's incredible. And so the weeds that you're dealing with now aren't necessarily weeds that were put there recently. So I was always a big fan of the Elliott Coleman method of weeding, to where as soon as you get that first flush of weeds, you're doing a real light scrape of the surface when the weed plants are really vulnerable. And if you don't disturb that soil surface after that time, a lot of times any secondary flushes of weeds that you may get are really pretty weak. And so that was kind of one of the ways that I would deal with it. As far as your comment on tilling is concerned, I absolutely agree with you, because it's a very simplistic statement, but the only difference to me between sand and soil is your organic matter. And every time you move that soil, you're oxidizing your own organic matter, and you're wrecking your own soil structure. So, a lot of people really feel they need to till in their soil, but it would be nice if people just learn to do it as rarely as possible. You certainly don't need to do it twice a season.
Yeah, I get that. All right, we just got a couple of minutes. Holly, I'm going to go to you. One of the things you said when you guys came into our studio this spring was you're going to try to do something new this year. What did you do new this year?
I don't think we did anything new this year.
All right, next.
Not that I can think of, unless Joey can think of something.
Joey?
No, we've just tried to do what we've always known and had success with in the past. We haven't really tried anything new this year in regards to a new plant, a new species, a new variety. We've just planted the garden as normal. Tried to go back to the standards in which we have found success with.
Okay, and we know that you're fighting weeds this year, but I also want to go back to Dan, because you mentioned something from Chicago Community Gardeners Association that you wanted to get out information. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. CCGA is the Chicago Community Gardeners Association, and they do a number of plant distributions every year. For their members. They have a plant distribution coming up on August 24th. And, one of the new things they've done over the past year is they've opened up their plant distributions to Chicago public school teachers, so that if they're looking for plants for their classrooms or their schools, just so the CPS teachers out there know that, CCGA welcomes you, and they want you to have plants in your room if you would like that. But August 24th is the date of the next CCGA plant distribution, and you can get more info on their website for Chicago Community Gardeners Association.
And they're a great partner in Chicago Excellence in Gardening Awards, which, and thank you, Dan. By the way, folks listening, Peggy and I and a bunch of other groups started Chicago Excellence in Gardening Awards, and we are in the middle of it. We are in the middle of judging a bunch of gardens right now. Dan's doing it, and I'm doing it. In fact, Peggy and I are meeting tomorrow to look at some gardens and some of the judges' reports, and so there you go. Joey and Holly Baird, thank you so much for being on the phone and on the show again. It's always a pleasure. Good luck with your new stations. I'm a little jealous, but I'll get over it. Go to thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com for more information. Dan, thank you so much. Go to Chicago Backyard Gardener on Facebook or chicagobackyardgardener.com. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Welcome to the second hour of the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. This hour is brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com. Here they are again, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
All I need is good food to eat and make me healthy, wealthy, wide awake. Lettuce, tomatoes, root and bacon. What about those sweet potatoes? All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good tools to make.
Yeah, all I need is good food to eat. If
lettuce, tomatoes.
If the critters don't get to them, come on, What we don't want to deal with is
if you put them outside, the squirrels will eat them. I'm not saying don't put them outside, but if you put them outside, the squirrels will eat them.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all we need to know. Or the chipmunks, or the RATs, RATSs.
Now, you were going to mention from hour one, we were playing the chorus.
Right, and you're going to get one more sample of PS22 in the second half of the show. This is this kids choir from Staten Island, New York, and the guy they were singing with, I finally tracked it down. I should have had it here. Well, the problem is when we came in, I wasn't online. I couldn't get. I had to reboot the whole computer, and that erased everything I had about it. So, all right, Andy Grammer is his name. Andy Grammer, Grammer. Andrew Charles Grammer is an American singer-songwriter and record producer. Do we call him records anymore? He is signed to S-Curve Records, so I guess if they call it S-Curve Records, you have to call it a record. Mm-hmm. His debut album, Andy Grammer, was released in 2011 and spawned the hit singles Keep Your Head Up and Fine By Me. His second album, Magazines or Novels, was released in 2014 with Back Home as the first single. So we'll have one more with Andy Grammer and PS22 chorus sometime in this hour. So stick around for that. All right.
And we wanted to give a shout out to all the great folks who were at the Thismia hunt last week.
That was
helped
fun.
With that live broadcast. Yeah.
And and the great thing about being in the studio today is when we leave, we're not going to have to wipe down all the cables and all of our equipment to make sure there aren't ticks on them. Okay, Kathleen, I know you're listening, so I got a story for you that I didn't tell you, so I'm telling it on the air now.
Uh-oh.
I got home, and I took the pants and the shirt and threw it in the washing machine, and the socks especially. It's like, okay, throw that in there, let's wash them. I went, okay, I got that taken care of. Actually, somebody said, did you take a shower? I said, no, I did a check. I didn't
see anything.
I didn't see anything. So I'm sitting there, I'm doing my work in the living room on Sunday, and I'm about to pick up my phone. I look at my phone, there's a tick crawling on my phone.
Uh-oh.
On my phone. And so I took the thing outside. I took it out the front porch. I went, okay, you managed to get in here, but you're not leaving alive.
You're out of here.
And I took it out front, and I went, with my thumb, like a piece of paper in my thumb, and I pull the paper up, and the thing's still just going, wah, 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 wah. And I go, well, no. And I did it again. Wah, 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 wah. And again and again and again, and the thing was still alive. And it's like, they're indestructible.
Robo-tick.
Oh, I just couldn't believe it. And I did him in. And I said, okay, I hope that's the last one here.
Oh,
I think it was. I haven't seen any since. So that was you. But it's amazing. They were everywhere.
But it was a great event.
It was a wonderful event and great people. And I hope you go listen to the podcast that I spent 87 hours editing because we had some dropout problems. Those of you listening live heard it, and I apologize for that. That was totally operator error. That was my fault. And but I think I got it fixed.
We figured out what the problem was.
Yeah. So what else we got here?
Well, wanted to give an update on the plover story, the piping plovers.
Right, at Montrose Beach in Chicago on the lakefront.
We've talked about that a couple of times, and I've been seeing on Facebook the last day or two from Chicago Ornithological Society and Chicago Audubon Society that 2 of the chicks have officially fledged. It's been 24 days. They've started flying around a little bit at the beach.
What you're saying, 2 of the chicks.
2 of the 3 chicks. Unfortunately, one of the chicks
did not make it. Okay. That's nature. That's life and death. It's how it happens. But 2 are fledging.
2, yeah.
Wow, that's great.
And the watch continues at Montrose Beach. They're still maintaining the close watch.
Fantastic. All right. And one more thing that we need
to...
One more. You can handle this.
Is coming up on Thursday, August 15th. Advocates for Urban Agriculture, or AUA, has their 5th annual...
Also a great partner with Chicago Excellence in Gardening Awards.
Definitely. They've got their 5th annual Grown in Chicago Soiree, which is...
Soiree.
It is an evening of music, merriment, and a showcase of urban agriculture that helps support AUA and flourishing local food systems in Chicago. They are going to be at Greenhouse Loft, 2545 West Diversey in the city from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., and you can go to their website, which is auachicago.org, for additional information and to link over to Eventbrite and buy your tickets.
One more thing I will say is on the show today, we have the return of meteorologist Rick DeMaio, who's been gone 3 out of the...
It's going to be a Rick sighting?
It's a Rick sighting. He's been gone 3 out of the last 4 weeks, and so we said, we need bonus Rick today. So we're getting bonus Rick time. That is, if we can get him on the phone. We'll try. We'll try. I know he's not listening, so I could.
He's a busy guy.
I can totally bust him here because I know he's not listening right now. And we'll totally bust him, but we'll have bonus Rick time because there's a lot going on in the climate and meteorological world. And it's not, and we don't even have any hurricanes.
But when we come back, we're talking microbrews.
Yeah.
We're talking beer, folks.
Beer. Oh, I used to have a beer song I could play.
A beer ding?
Beer. We got a beer ding. All right. We'll talk about 7 generations ahead and their big old micro brew review next Saturday. Stick around. The Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki.
Hey, Chicago.
Or something.
When you want the best science-based tree care in the area, go to Bartlett Tree Experts. With locations in Barrington, Naperville, downtown Chicago, and Northbrook, Bartlett has 80 tree care professionals ready to do what's right for your tree and you. They also partner with great organizations like the Morton Arboretum. Whether it's your home or your business, a large job or a small one, every tree needs a champion. Call
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help. This sentence is
Streets
grammatically
Alive
correct.
returns to Main Street in Evanston on Sunday, September 9th from 1 to 5 p.m. and the Mike Nowak Show is once again a proud sponsor. There's live music, crafts, pollinator, garden tours,
I like beer 'cause it is
art,
good.
painting,
There it is.
sports
All right.
demos, delicious
Great.
food from
Can't
street
believe I
vendors,
found
and the Evanston Green Living Festival.
Can't
for both
believe I
local
found it.
products, services,
Awesome.
And ideas that promote sustainable lifestyles. As always, Main Street will be open for people to walk, bike, scooter, and skate.
Will
For
I get
details, visit
zapped on this? We'll have to be
evanstonstreetsalive.org.
careful.
We'll talk loudly
is
over
helping
it.
to change
Yeah.
the way our world eats and farms to promote
Just go-
conscientious food choices, reduce farmed animal suffering, and advance sustainable agriculture. We are changing policy, changing farming, and changing the story by working with farmers to build alternatives that put animals, farmers, and communities first. To learn more about Farm Forward's work to end animal suffering and advance sustainable agriculture, visit www.farmforward.com and sign up for our monthly newsletter and find out what you can do to help. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Farm Forward.
Stay in touch with The Mike Nowak Show. Find us on Facebook at The Mike Nowak Show. Use the Twitter handle
Why
at Mike
why
Now.
such a
Send us
large
photo
gap?
on Instagram at
I noticed
Mike
that.
Nowak
Sometimes
Show
they're like
or
butted
write to
together
us,
and
Mike
sometimes
at
they're like that.
MikeNowak.net. We're also at thegreendivas.com and on the Gab Radio Network. Podcasts and blog posts are available every week at MikeNowak.net. Sign up for posts in our newsletter on
All
the
right.
homepage and support the sponsors who support us. Look for their logos and specials
Promo?
at MikeNowak.net.
Well, Chief, what's all the excitement about?
You're listening to Smart Talk.
You should get a medal for that.
1590 AM and 95.9 FM.
This is a big one.
I like beer because it is good. I drink beer because I should. If there was a song to sing, I sing it and beer you bring. I drink beer when I am sad, because love beer, it makes me glad.
Yeah. This is a Bill Turk song.
He may take that one from us.
Let's go drink some beer.
All right, there we go. That's
Dear.
I can't find a more appropriate song. I can't believe I tracked that down so quickly.
And I haven't seen Facebook block it yet, so here we go.
Okay, yay! Did we get by Mark Zuckerberg?
It gets a beer ding.
Because he's asleep. You know, last week he overslept and forgot to turn on Facebook, and that's why we didn't have it at the beginning of the show. Welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Yeah, we're talking beer on the Mike Nowak Show, and that's why we have Alan Shannon on the phone and Jen Nelson on the phone. They are both from 7 generations ahead, and guess what? Next Saturday is the 12th annual Oak Park Micro Brew Review out in, of course, Oak Park. So welcome, Alan. Welcome, Jen.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's so, Alan, good to have you back on the show. It's been a while. The last time you were with me is when I was at Progresso Radio down the dial. And
It's been a while.
It has been a while. And I think about you all the time because I get your Good Greens emails. And so I keep in touch with you that way because you're always sending out information. You should know that Alan works for the USDA, Food and Nutrition Service, And so tell me a little bit, you're a public affairs director, but tell me a little bit about the work you do. You're a facilitator, aren't you?
Exactly. So USDA has so many programs and 17 different agencies. So I try to connect communities to all those programs, primarily the food and nutrition service programs. There are 15. Of course, SNAP is the largest, and school meals. We have a number of programs that if you're not aware of them, they could be a little daunting. So I try to connect people and communities to those programs and make sure they're aware of the opportunities there.
All right, and you're on the board of 7 Generations Ahead, and Jen Nelson is Senior Program Manager for 7 Generations Ahead, and you work with communities, municipalities, you work on food scrap issues and composting, soil, water issues. Tell me a little bit about that work, Jen.
Thank you. We do all sorts of sustainability work at 7 Generations Ahead, and a big part of what we do is very similar to Alan. It's connecting people, connecting good organizations and businesses, and helping them to do things in a more sustainable way. So a part of my work is helping to advance food scrap composting in Illinois, and that involves policy work. It involves supporting businesses and residents and municipalities in understanding why it's good to compost food scraps and how to do it in an affordable way. The microbrew is a great example of an event where we look at everything that's being used at the microbrew as in terms of it being a resource and trying to throw away as little as possible.
Yeah, I was looking at your website. Okay, I'm going to bust you here a little bit, and I apologize for that. But I'm a guy who's interested in zero waste stuff, and Peggy can attest to that too, because we go to events all the time. I have been involved in organizations that have put together events. Making an event zero waste is one of the hardest things in the world. Mm-hmm. And as I wrote on my blog, and you can go to mikenovak.net to see the blog post, as I wrote on the blog, I think it's because people go to an event and they think, oh, it's an event.
It's a one-time thing.
I can take a break from sustainability for a couple of hours. The problem is if you got 10,000 people taking a break from sustainability for a couple of hours, now you got a lot of mess. And the other thing I've noticed is that even in venues that are set up to do this, they get it wrong.
People are confused. They don't know what goes where.
Well, you and I, Peggy, okay, and I'll give a couple, some of the events that we go to, which are about natural areas or the Good Food Festival, you still have to have monitors there at the stations to tell people what to throw away. Why is it so hard, and Alan, we'll start with you, why is it so hard for people still in the 21st century to understand what can be recycled, what can be composted, and what needs to be thrown away?
Well, that's a question. So I'm a public affairs guy, so to me, it's always about education. If people really aren't aware, so making sure that they are aware, which is something that Generations Ahead is doing in communities, is providing that education, helping people to connect the dots. And I think, as you said so accurately, Mike, people go to a festival or an event and they kick back and they're not thinking about that. To me, images are very strong, and we're always looking for ways when we plan this event and other ones of ways that we can educate better and make sure that people are aware. Because if people are aware and they know what the right choice is, they will do it, I believe. And we do see that. And one of the ways that we're able to help educate people through this event, as you mentioned, we have a lot of volunteers, and we need a lot of volunteers to operate this event successfully. And those volunteers are standing at all the waste receptacles explaining it. But if you stand there and watch, there are a fair number of people that are interested, they're engaged, they want to know, where do I put this? And there are a smaller number of people that don't, that need that guidance.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. Alan, your phone connection is not great. I'm going to talk to Jen for a second. We're going to disconnect, and we're going to call you right back. Okay, and see if we get a better connection. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it's a cell, and we'll figure out what we can do. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks. So let's go to you, Jen. Since you deal with these issues as well, what's your take on this? One of the things I've noticed, and it's something Alan just alluded to, is that you got to have people at these stations. Wouldn't it be better if the public knew what they were supposed to throw where? When do we get to that point? And where along that continuum is something like the Oak Park Micro Brew review?
So those are two loaded questions.
I know, that's what we do on
Sunday
this show.
morning.
That's what we do here.
Excellent. One of the, like, you think about cities like San Francisco that have had composting and recycling for decades, and still staff sorting stations at events with volunteers to help with the sorting. And that's a state where it's free to compost and it's free to recycle because they've built the cost structure so that you only pay for trash. So to say when we're going to be there is a little bit trickier. I agree with you. At events, people are coming to the Oak Park Micro Brew review, yes, to support 7 Generations Ahead, a fantastic nonprofit, but also to enjoy all the fabulous beer and to listen to music and eat the food and hang out with friends. So those volunteers end up at the sorting station helping people if they want help or just accepting their materials and sorting for them. But the two tricks that we use with events are, number one, we make sure that there are only garbage cans available in our resource sorting station. So we have 5 areas in the microbrew, and in those 5 areas, under a tent, you've got a landfill container, a recycling container, and a composting container with pictures of what goes where with the actual items taped on the lid. It's all a way that we can help educate people that everything that you throw away, you need to be thinking about the right place to put it. The other thing that we do with this event, and we recommend every time we teach other organizations to have zero waste events, is that if you can control what you have at the festival, what's available for people, it's much easier. So for the microbrew review, all of the food vendors are supplied with compostable bowls and plates, and we also try and have them limit the food servings to more of an appetizer or snack size so that people aren't throwing away food or composting food. And that's a big part of helping get rid of one huge area of confusion. In the United States, it's so hard to tell if what you're using is compostable or recyclable or could be neither one and has to be thrown away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is it. That's the message. I mean, we're trying to get people to recycle. It's hard enough when you don't even throw organic waste into the equation, with the exception of paper.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard enough to get people to recycle cans, bottles, and paper because they throw all kinds of other garbage. But once you start bringing in organic matter like food scraps and as you say, plates that have had food on them, I look at the stuff, paper plates, and I know I can't recycle them, but I go, that's all compostable, all of it. We have to get to the point where we figure out that we can compost most of that, so we're not throwing it into landfills. So it looks like you guys have about somewhere between 80 and 100% diversion away from landfills at your event. So that's fantastic. Now let's see if Alan is back. Alan, are you with us?
I am back. Can you hear me?
Oh my gosh, that's a much better line. Yes, thank you so much. So we need to talk about the event real quick, and then we'll get a little bit into the mission of 7 Generations Ahead. Obviously, there's going to be beer, and if you go to the website, if you go to 7generationsahead.org, you can find a list of, you have so many people, so many breweries involved in this. Wow, that's
amazing. The varieties.
So if Bill Turk is listening, any beer you've ever wanted is going to be at this event. Bill does our show in the afternoon from 1 to 3, playtime with Bill Turk and
Carrie Kendall,
and they often have a brew when they're doing it. So he's a big fan.
Bill does.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. Some other people do too, not me. So tell me about the number of breweries you have there, and what you can expect from them, and also the Iron Brewer competition, Alan.
So there's such a great variety of microbrews at this event, and then the Iron Brewer one is based off the Iron Chef competition. So they throw some ingredients the way of these brewers, the special competition, and they create a special brew. So there are some brews at this event that you'll only get at this event, and a lot of these breweries are only serving brews that you can get at their tap room. So it's a great opportunity to sample some variety of beers, so many beers, it's actually impossible, and I haven't really tried because it could be dangerous to try to sample them all. So you've got to be selective, but it's beautiful downtown Oak Park. You couldn't ask for a better setting. If you want to check out the Frank Lloyd Wright House before or after, the Hemingway Birthplace Museum, there's a lot of stuff there, and it's just beautiful to hang out there and try these beers. And there's some good food, too. And it's all for a good cause. When you go to an event like this and you're having fun and it's summertime in Chicago, it's nice to be able to do that, enjoy yourself, and support a good cause at the same time.
There's some food pairings with beer as well as things people can get involved with, right?
Yeah, well, we do have the VIP tents, and I think that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
So if you want to get a VIP ticket, we still have some of those available. I will be at those VIP venues, and we've got some restaurants and partners that are doing some special food to go along with those special brews. And again, it's really not super expensive, and it all goes to support a fantastic cause. So you can eat some great.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that there's bands also, Lakeside City, the Instinct, Karen Salmon, the Ointment Appointment, which is that's my new favorite band. DJ Dan Bryce, Cardinal Harbor, Eden Archer, Lily Winwood, and Don Gallardo, Righteous Acoustic Sound Party, DC Millionaire, and Veltway All Stars. So there you go. So you got food, you got beer, you got bands. What else do you need in life? All right, and it's from 2 to 7. The beer starts pouring at 3. So you can get in there and you can have some fun before we start serving beer. Now, we got a couple of...
And you can buy your tickets online or at the gate.
Well, right. You can get them at the gate. It costs you $5 more at the gate. Get them online. You can go to my website, MikeNovak.net. I've got all the links there. Real quick, Jen, tell us about some of the stuff you're doing with 7 Generations Ahead. You've got... the Illinois Farm to School Network, you've got Zero Waste, you've got Zero Waste Schools and food waste reduction and composting, you got solar energy issues. Let's start with the Illinois Farm to School Network. What is that all about?
The Illinois Farm to School Network is trying to connect kids eating in schools in their lunchroom with local fresh food. And it's, one of the things that's a challenge for schools working on limited budgets is being able to get affordable access to fresh from the farm food. And so we do work helping support schools and districts and kitchen managers and making those connections and being able to help them to find affordable food. We have some really great programs just to introduce kids. We have a Harvest of the Month program where schools are encouraged to focus on one local produce. And we have the Great Apple Crunch that happens in the fall, and you've got thousands of kids in Illinois all crunching into local and regional apples. And I think when kids get to try food that's fresh and from our region, it makes them much more likely to eat healthy food, to enjoy their school lunches. And so that's part of what we do, is we help to bring together schools and food suppliers and local farmers and make sure that schools have access to affordable local food.
Yeah, we have 1 minute left, but I mentioned the Zero Waste Schools and food waste reduction and composting. I know that you're involved with the Illinois Food Scrap. Illinois. What is it, Jen?
The Illinois Food Scrap Coalition.
Yes. That was it. I couldn't remember the last word.
Coalition, yeah.
Yeah, but I imagine what you're teaching in the schools is a lot of what you teach people at the Micro Brew Review, which is...
It is, absolutely.
Yeah, this goes here, that goes there, and if you do it now, you'll remember it your whole life. All right, thank you so much, Alan Shannon. Alan, you got to get on the show again. We'll talk about USDA stuff at some point.
Love to do that.
Okay, and Jen Nelson. All right, go to 7generations.org and go to the Brew Review. We'll be right back. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I know it goes very fast, but really, I think we crammed in a lot of information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did a wonderful job.
And Al,
and we'll see you.
yeah.
Yes.
And like I said, Alan, I'd love to have you come to the studio. We'll talk about Good Greens and some of the programs. Notice I didn't bust you for all the bad USDA news. So
Thank you for doing that. I was like, please don't ask me about.
No. We were talking beer this morning.
Yeah, no, it's totally beer today. So, all right, take care, guys. Bye bye.
You guys
Yeah,
too.
thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
You too. Yeah, I know. We'll punt until he's available.
Videos, and of course, lots of low-stress ways to live a deeper shade of green.
We can talk tardigrades on the moon.
What happens when you bring together hundreds of people from diverse faiths and walks of life across Illinois and the Midwest with the goal of healing the earth? You get the Green Team Summit, which celebrates the 20th anniversary of Faith in Place. This important gathering happens on Saturday, September 14th at the Field Museum in Chicago. And the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki will be there. We want you to join us to fight for environmental justice.
Cool.
Go to faithinplace.org.
My text worked.
Mosquitoes transmit deadly diseases like Zika and West Nile virus, but Summit Mosquito Dunks kill mosquitoes before they're old enough to bite. Just float an organic mosquito dunk in ponds, bird baths, and any standing water to kill mosquito larvae for 30 days or longer. Don't worry, mosquito dunks won't harm people, pets, fish, or wildlife. Mosquito Dunks, available at fine garden centers, hardware stores, and online. Visit summitresponsiblesolutions.com.
Chicago Smart Talk, AM 1590 and FM 95.9, the exclusive home for the Dave Ramsey Show in Chicago.
And I will fight for you. I always do until my heart is black and blue. Yeah.
Oh, I love those kids. I love those kids. They just they sound like angels. You know, it's just amazing. And that's PS 22 in Staten Island and Andy Grammer. That's another one of the songs they did with Andy Grammer. We've got meteorologist Rick DeMaio in just a second. However, if you love to landscape with trees and you haven't been to Rich's Fox Willow Pines in Woodstock, you've missed out on their collection of unique conifers and rare deciduous trees. And now, after 31 years in business, they're closing their doors at the end of 2019. We're talking about Rich and Susie. And if you've never met Rich and Susie, see, that's why a reason you got to go out there is just to meet them, because they're a trip, okay?
It's an experiential visit.
It really is. So now is the time to take advantage of 40% off for container trees and 30% off in-ground trees. But we're not talking about any trees here. They've got pines, spruces, firs, hemlocks, junipers, yews, and deciduous larches, bald cypresses, dawn redwoods. The trick is many of the cultivars are dwarf in form or have unusual shapes. Sometimes they refer to them as Dr. Seuss shapes, such as weeping, mounding, columnar, or angular. Like I said, these are not your grandfather's conifers. If you've been to the Shedd Aquarium, the Lincoln Park Conservatory, or the Chicago Botanic Garden, you've seen some of these fantastic trees, because Rich donated a lot of these to these various organizations. Go to richesfoxwillowpines.com. And the other thing you need to know, they have contributed for years to all kinds of groups like Heifer International, Mano a Mano. Mano a Mano is now their current, I guess you could call charity. They have built hospitals in Bolivia. They're doing some work in Africa right now. A lot of this money is going to go there. So this is another reason to go up to Rich's Fox Willow Pines in Woodstock. Go to richesfoxwillowpines.com for more information. Follow them on Facebook and sign up for the e-newsletter to get the latest news. Again, Rich's foxwillowpines.com. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki, and like I said, today is Bonus De Mayo Day. Rick DeMaio, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Mike. Good morning, Peg. You're right. The Fox Willow, richest Fox Willow. What do you call Fox Willow Pines?
Right,
You refer to it as?
right. Richest Fox Willow Pines.
It's like the Chicago Botanic Garden and the Morton Arboretum kind of wrapped into one, a smaller version, west, isn't it? It's
out in McHenry County, yeah.
Yeah, they're in McHenry, and I could give you the address, but I figure folks it's easier for them to just go to the website.
Yeah, and they're like you said, they're a trip as well, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. You know, you could get Rich talking, and then you just pull up a chair and grab a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Why not?
And he'll go on for a while.
Good way to spend a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you,
Absolutely.
Susie is actually one of the funniest people on the planet if you just turn her loose as well. So they're quite a pair.
Yeah, they really are. Hey, you guys ready for some heavy rain coming at us?
Really? Are we talking heavy rain? Because that's not what I heard on some other forecasts, but this is what you're saying. So tell us about that.
Yeah, this is stuff that's going to be coming back at us in waves. It's going to be late tonight. It's going to be midday tomorrow. It's going to be tomorrow night and possibly into Tuesday as well. So as I mentioned yesterday, I think we're in for some of the heaviest rain we've seen around here in probably maybe 3.5, almost 4 weeks. It still looks like the bulk of it could end up being more so to the south of us, but this is definitely going to be one of those events where by the time we finish up with Tuesday afternoon, we'll be like, I think we needed that. And I'm getting somewhere between 2.5 and as much as 3 inches. So it's not gonna come down today, but it's definitely going to add up over the next 3 days. And looking at the way the lawns are, getting kind of yellowish and brown in some of the plants, if you're not putting water in them, we can actually use the rain. And who would have thought that after the incredible rain we had in April, May, and June, right?
Well,
Right.
that's the way it goes,
Yeah.
and I'm telling you, I'm looking at some of these other forecasts. You seem to be out on a limb here.
Yeah, there was some light sprinkles this morning up north, but I saw there was heavier on the radar south this morning.
But I'm looking at a forecast.
Well, but I'm not. I'm talking about between now and Tuesday afternoon.
No,
This is a
I know,
3-day forecast.
and that's what I'm looking at too.
And I'm looking at that too.
And what I'm seeing is scattered thunderstorms on.
I'm seeing isolated and scattered tomorrow.
And you're the guy saying you think we're going to get some real rain.
And he's been pretty right.
Yeah.
You've been
I think easily between now and Tuesday afternoon. Some areas, particularly along and south of Interstate 80, as much as 2.5 to 3 inches, and north of that, between here and the Wisconsin state line, about 2 to 2.5 inches. So it's not that hard this time of the year with this type of an air mass that's been baking to the south and southwest of us. Oftentimes you're sitting in a nice cool air mass and you go, really? We're going to get heavy rain, but that's not where the rain's coming from. The storms are going to be developing out across eastern Nebraska, southern areas of Iowa, and then basically moving over the top of this incredibly hot air mass that has now been in place for almost 2, maybe even 2.5 weeks. So we've kind of lucked out that we've been north of this dome pretty much since about the end of June. And we have not had anything in a way of any excessive heat for a long period of time, other than those 2 days of high heat that we had back in, the middle of July. But you look at temperatures across areas of Oklahoma and areas of Texas, even into parts of Arizona, where yesterday Phoenix had a dew point, get this, of 67. So the monsoon is completely, the monsoon is taking over across parts of southern areas of New Mexico and also into Arizona. It's amazing because Tucson yesterday, off and on showers and thunderstorms had a high of only 84. And you'll get that this time of the year. So I always like the way when we transition out of your normal, out of your springtime thunderstorms and into your typical summer weather patterns, you get into these large domes of heat. Yesterday, the southwest coast of Florida, pretty much had temperatures in the upper 80s, 87 in Fort Myers, 88 down in Punta Gorda, which they're basically looking at the 15-year anniversary, not looking, but experiencing the 15-year anniversary of what was the most powerful hurricane that hit the United States since Andrew back in 1992. Charlie was a Category 4, and it struck on August the 13th, 2004. But those areas of the Southeast, Atlanta, 96, Charleston, 98, Wilmington, North Carolina, 98. But you look at South Florida, and they had these easterly winds, which is very common when you get into the latter half of August, as you get into, quote, the tropical storm season, with temperatures only in the lower 90s. By the way, it was interesting. I was looking at a meteorologist who posts some really, really great blogs about the tides in Miami, and they had some of the most highest tides ever outside of the tropical storm season that they've had in the last 5 days. And this guy has data that goes all the way back to the mid-80s. Because when you get into the tropical storm season, you tend to get these onshore flows of what they call the king tide season, where even during a low tide event, you're generally about a foot to a foot and a half above normal. And last week, Miami was having tides anywhere between about 2.5 and 3 feet above normal. We call them the sunny day tides, and that's obviously due to the influx of salt water coming in underneath their sewers, and obviously related to, or at least contributed to, sea level rise.
Right, and that's, I want to get to some of the articles that you sent, and I told folks on my blog that there was going to be a quiz at the end of the hour, because I know you're gearing up to start teaching again next week. Which is amazing, you know. I keep
scary.
Yeah, I know. Here we go. It's we start again, and I got to mention before I get to the articles here, you're writing a book.
Yeah.
What's the book?
Yeah, you don't have to say that.
I want to.
You had some chapters done already, though.
Oh yeah. I'm already on chapter 11. I've finished chapter 10. It's all online. It's called Aviation Meteorology, but it's also going to be used for an introductory meteorology class as well. And it's a labor of love. I mean, when you write a book, you really get into, quote, the weeds on things. You really begin to pull out things that, you know, all of a sudden you go, wow, you know, I don't think I've ever really understood it this way. So I think when we get into, and I don't really think I'm writing, quote, a textbook. I'm repurposing a lot of information. I think I have to say that because a lot of the stuff that I'm using is stuff that's already out there, but I'm actually repackaging it for use for students that could use it in a much more, I think, technologically easier way. And right now, that type of format is not available. So the first part of the book, the first, I should say, half of the book, should be done by the end of the summer. That's going to be in about 3 weeks, and then I'll start writing the second part, and hopefully that'll be completed by about December. And the published date is hopefully for fall of 2020. So basically about a year from now.
Fantastic.
Can we book him as a show guest?
I think so. We'll bring you in the studio, and you get to go on the book tour and come and hawk your book here on our show. That's one.
Well, it's not something that people could buy. It's something for students to use.
I know.
We're hassling you.
We'll give them away to students, okay? Just so they have them for your courses. We got like a minute. We got a minute before the break. A couple of you mentioned the sea level rise in the tides in Florida, and of course, at the same time, we're witnessing record melts in Greenland.
Oh my God! Yeah.
And Iceland. And Iceland is you went to Iceland a couple of years ago, and Iceland is losing its glaciers.
Yeah. And I know we don't have a lot of time, but real quickly, one of the things that I think is the best way to really understand how climate has changed and has warmed is you really have to look at glaciers, not only in Greenland and Iceland, but all around the world in both the northern and the southern hemisphere. And that's probably the best way of really looking at how things have warmed up.
All right. Well, we'll continue that discussion. It's bonus Rick DeMaio segment today on the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. When we come back, I want to talk about this amazing story you sent to me about the USDA report that's coming out. Wow. All right.
God, yeah.
Rick DeMaio, we'll be right back. This is Mike Nowak.
If you're a sustainable business and you're not part of the McHenry
Yeah, I was
County
looking at
College Green
the
Living Expo,
Gulf
my question
temperatures
is,
that you sent as well, with hurricane season coming. I don't know if we'll have time to hit on that, but
it's one of the best green events in
Yeah, we can definitely talk about that. Seeing that I was just down there, Peg. Yeah, without a doubt.
yeah, you were just down in South Florida, but was it cooler there when you were there, or was it still warm?
You know what? It was basically 91, 92 every day. I mean, it's hard for them to get really hot this time of the year because there's always a sea breeze and there's always afternoon thunderstorms. So their hottest time of the year generally tends to be in the spring, like late May, early June. But once the water warms up so much, I mean, you can literally have a shower or a thunderstorm at 8 in the morning, which is what we were getting.
Okay.
So, and it's really interesting. I just found an article that I think was repurposed from that blog that I was talking about, and it's on the Capital Weather Gang. That's a site from the Washington Post, and I'll send it to you because I think it's got some really great things, again, talking about these king tides and how Miami is getting hit, I think, more so this year than any of the year before because we're seeing it more and more of these of the way the tides are being impacted by the rising sea level. And it doesn't take much. An inch or two is all you need.
Oh, my goodness, yes. And I don't think people really understand the magnitude of that and how that happens.
You know what?
Well, hold on. We're about to get back, so hang on a second.
Wrist pain too, all with gentle, non-force adjustments. And she'll talk to you about your problems and work with you to devise the best treatment strategy. Find health tips at rivernorthwellness.com. Call Dr. Bonnie Flaster at 312-642-7545 and get back to feeling good.
It's JT and Leanne. Join us for the Heart and Home Radio Show, brought to you by Exit Realty.
Sunday mornings at 11 on WCGO Radio, 1590 AM and 95.9 FM.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Now, this is one of those things that I heard throughout my youth, and you too, Peggy, I'll bet, right? No?
I don't think
No?
so. What is it?
It's called Bugler's Holiday. And I was going to play it last week, but it didn't have room to fit it in, so I saved it. And I said, I used to hear this all the time when I was growing up. I mean, not all the time. It wasn't on the top 40 or anything, but it's just kind of a cool... It's like we played... well, anyway.
It's the background music of your childhood.
Somehow, yeah. All right. The Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki.
You might not know that City Grange, Chicago's newest and most unique garden center, also offers landscaping services. Here's their promise. They won't recommend anything that won't succeed in your space long term. They won't abandon you once the project is over, and they'll give you an environment you can feel proud of. Stop by 5500 Northwestern Avenue at Catalpa to learn more. And if you do it on the weekend, there's free valet parking. That's today.
Yay.
Go to citygrange.com. City Grange, learn, shop, blossom.
Nice to have people who will do the landscaping and do it right. So not
abandon you.
And not abandon you. And fall is the best time to do that kind of work because it sets you up for the spring. Just letting you know.
Lawn season, too.
Lawn season. We're going to have to do something on lawns coming up at the beginning of September. End of August. That's lawn care. So if you want to work on your lawn, we'll be talking about that in the next few weeks. Welcome back to the show. Rick DeMaio, meteorologist, is on board with us here. We talked a second ago about glaciers melting, and we were talking over the break, Rick, about, you said, if sea level gets raised an inch, that's a big deal, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, because 1 inch easily, you push 1 inch in. And then the water doesn't come back out. In other words, you got like an onshore flow, and then you'll get like another inch on top of that. Now you have 2, and then you haven't pushed it out. And then you have onshore flow, which you generally tend to get this time of the year on the east coast of Florida. And onshore flow just basically means that the big subtropical high that sits over the Bahamas and Bermuda just keeps blowing easterly winds on the bottom side. And now you bring in a hurricane or two, and I just sent you guys this email because it was interesting that I found this particular person blogging down when I was just down in Southwest Florida this past week, and his information just got picked up by the Washington Post, and it's a really great graphic because if there's one way to really see how climate change has become an issue for people living along the coast, you look at where the water is moving from a standpoint of a high tide, not so much during a hurricane, but during the off time when there's no hurricane. And when you start to get these 2.5 and 2.75 foot rises above what you normally get, you begin to go, okay, now what would happen if there was a new moon or a full moon? And those people who live near an ocean knows what those kind of tides are. And they have a hurricane on top of it. And again, this is what happened with Irma back in 2017, and this is what happened with Sandy back in 2012, is you had all three of these factors come in at the same time. And when I was down in the Punta Gorda, Minnesota Key area this past week, it's amazing. You drive along the coast, and every single home that's built within probably 150 to 200 feet of the ocean, they're all on concrete stilts. In other words, they're raised up. Why are they raised up? Because they've had hurricanes in the past. So they're not going to fool around with this stuff. The problem, though, is when you start to get into these areas in like southeast Florida where you have so much building right along not only Miami Beach, not only Miami, but Miami Beach, which is basically the key there. Now you get into not only widespread damage, but also the cost. So it's all about adaptation, mitigation, and understanding vulnerability and understanding risk. And it's not like we're trying to be bad people here by telling people what you've done in the past is wrong. We're just trying to tell people that you have to prepare for a future that's slightly different than what you've been preparing for the last 15 to 20 years. And I still don't understand why the science is really, really difficult for people to understand. It's actually fairly simple, but yet there's this mental block that we're trying to take their country away from them the way they wanted it to be when they got to this point in time. And it's really interesting. If you ask someone who's 65 or 75 years old in Florida, they'll say, yeah, there's a problem, but I'm not to blame for it, and I'm not going to do anything about it. But if you ask them if they are concerned about the problem being a concern for their kids and their kids' kids, right away they go, yeah, we need to do something about it. So it really is quite ironic.
It really is. All right, let's get to something you sent that it just blew me away. And it is something. It's from the Ag Web, and the headline is "All Eyes on the August 12th USDA Reports," which is tomorrow. The countdown is on Monday. On Monday, August 12th, USDA will release its monthly crop production and world agricultural supply and demand estimates, the WASDE. This year's August reports will include more information than ever before, including the resurvey announced in June, satellite data, and for the first time ever, FSA acreage certification information. This report, here's where it gets interesting. This report has the potential to be a market mover and hold several surprises, market analysts say. There's no question that the upcoming reports are critical, as they should technically set the baseline for production that should have been set 6 weeks ago, and as such holds the potential to generate quite a bit of excitement either higher or lower next week, says Dan Huber, general manager of the Huber Report. Here's the money sentence. Huber has one big prediction for Monday. We will experience 30 seconds to a minute of market insanity when the figures are released. Holy smoke. What does he mean by that? What do you think, Rick?
And Peg sent me this information because AccuWeather did a study of their own, which is good. It's good to have someone out there who's not part of the government do an analysis that is basically from a private sector, and said that the U.S. government, USDA, undercounted the acreage that was either in poor shape or was not planted at all. And I even talked to a couple of friends of mine who are really close to me that even said that the report in July was just complete BS. And he said, wait till the report in August, then you're going to see something. And I'm not too sure why they did this, and I really don't understand it, but I don't know whether or not it was trying to get people to not plant, and I think the government may have had something up their sleeve saying that we don't have enough money to actually reimburse the people who do plant. It is kind of confusing from that standpoint. But the bottom line is the area that has been hit by the heat, particularly out across western Iowa and into Kansas and Nebraska, they're the ones that I think are going to be really impacted due to the fact that they had first wetness and now heat. So I think what you're going to see is a number much, much higher than what was out in July, and probably the worst crop since 2012, and maybe even worse than that.
Wow.
So we'll see what happens with that.
That's all we can say about that is...
I say this calls for action, and now, nip it in the bud.
Okay, this is what we're going to have to do. All right, we need a quick forecast here, Rick. Give us 30 seconds.
Yeah. So we got through glaciers, we got through sea level rise, and we'll get through the crop report. But as I mentioned before, rain tonight, rain tomorrow, rain Tuesday. And by this time Tuesday afternoon, or by Tuesday afternoon, anywhere between 2.5 and 3 inches. And then cooler weather for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday before heat returns. Saturday and Sunday just in time for the H2O show.
All right, thanks, Rick. So good to have you back. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Rick.
All right, thanks to everybody on the show. Dan Gibbs, Joey and Holly Baird, Alan, Shannon, Jen Nelson, and until next time, go green or
go home.
Yes, it's over.
Come on, jerk. Seriously?
I slept through the whole thing. Well, you didn't miss much.